and welcome to another how-to video. In this video I just want to talk about how to paint a ceiling that has that a popcorn ceiling that has that texture to it, that popcorn texture that really absorbs a lot of paint. And and when you're doing a ceiling, well, I'll just get into it here. So the first thing you want is a roller. This is not the cleanest roller. Has a lot of many gallons of paint of use out of this roller, and so you want to get a roller like this, and then because you're going to do it on the ceiling, you're going to need an extension pole here to be able to get up to the ceiling comfortably, and you can adjust it to the right height. After that, if you want to get a roll, and this has what they call nap on it, so this is 3/8 inch thick nap, and you're going to want that for the texture, the high texture. And when you're on a ceiling like this, the popcorn texture, you've got, quite a bit of texture here to it. So you want to get a roll like this with the 3/8 inch thick to get into all those places of the texture. Right, so it's going to be hard to do this with one hand, but let's see. Basically slip your roll on the end there, and what I do is just tap it in. Sometimes right on that, when you get as much use out of it as I have, you can put some WD-40 right there so it keeps spinning real nice. And right in the where it spins there, that little axle. All right. Now, anytime you get a new roll like this, it's going to take a little bit for it to absorb the paint. So, but you don't want it to be dripping all over. Also, you want to get now this, I'm going to be taking out this carpet from this house, so I'm not worried about it. But typically you do want a tarp, like I have there, to protect your carpet. Lay something down a lot bigger than that goes over plastic, poly sheeting, or whatever you have. A big cardboard box would be fine. So, and I don't really press into it. I try to just let it absorb into the roll without really pressing into it, because the thing with these rolls is they can get compacted over time. They'll get compacted, and so the more pressure you put on them, either when you're soaking up the paint or when you're applying it, the more pressure you put, the quicker that nap is going to get compacted down, and then it'll be of less value to you. So again, with one hand here, but you start. Now when you're doing popcorn, you really just you don't want to go over it too much. Now see, if I was doing a wall, I'd be doing this a lot faster and rolling it back and forth. But when you're working with this popcorn ceiling texture, a lot of times it uses a very little amount of paint. There's a very little amount of paint in there, and there's a lot of gesso plaster that's water soluble, and it'll dissolve and just come right off your ceiling. So you want to be careful and not apply a lot of pressure, because if you go back and forth with it and apply too much pressure, now see, this is I'm gonna have to go back over that a little bit with the second coat. If you apply too much pressure, something like this will happen. And where it starts to let go, the original popcorn texture will start to release from the drywall ceiling, and it'll come off. And that's because I got it wet as I was rolling over it, and then continued another time to roll over it, and it will stick to your roller and start to peel off. So it's a little tricky painting these popcorn ceilings with popcorn textured ceiling with a roller brush. You could always try to spray it as well. Now I've got more paint in the roll, so this should go on a little more evenly now. Now my roll's a little unbalanced, but see, again, I'm trying not to overlap, because where it's already wet, that'll make the popcorn texture already start to let go a little bit from the drywall. And if you put a lot of pressure with this roller, it can cause that in some places, especially if there's been a lot of humidity, or you've ever had any kind of a, water leak, or any dampness in your attic area, or like a bathroom. If you have popcorn texture in a kitchen or a bathroom especially, then it's more susceptible to peeling off as you're painting it. So like I said, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this. I'm trying to more load up. Now you do use more paint, so I'm trying to load up my roller and kind of let the paint do the work rather than me applying a lot of pressure. And sometimes these pans are uneven, and so you're getting, in this particular one, I'm getting more paint in the middle of my roll than to the sides. But I'm doing this, rolling it so many times, because you really don't want this to just be covered and dripping with paint. You want it just to soak it up, kind of as you would think of like a sponge, rather than just dripping wet. Just a moment here. Like I said, doing this with one hand is a little tricky. So I'm just trying to but you do want to use quite a bit of paint, because you're filling in this popcorn texture that is so thick, depending on how it was originally applied, but usually it's real thick. So see how I'm just going kind of one direction here and just doing the least amount of pressure I can with a lot of paint in my roll, just before it's not dripping, but as much as I possibly can before it gets to that point. And going over it, rolling over it as few times as I can with the least amount of pressure as I can. And one big secret to that is really loading your roll with a lot of paint. Now, because because there is so much texture, you are going to go through quite a bit of paint and getting it all into all these nooks and crannies here. But that's the idea. Alright, so this is painting a popcorn texture ceiling and loading your roller up real well, but not to the point of dripping, so that when you go over it and you paint, it fills in all these cracks, and you don't, because you have your roll loaded up so much, you're not having to press real hard. You're not having to press real hard, and you go over it just the least amount of strokes as possible, so that it doesn't start peeling off on you like it did for me right there, like it can happen. All right, that's how to paint a popcorn texture ceiling with a roller and an extension. Hope that was helpful for you and gave you something to think about. Appreciate you watching this, and look for my other how-to videos. Also, you can visit my How To by Taylor Facebook page. Thanks for watching.